Television 5.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. The Reagan administration is accusing the Soviet Union of helping those terrorists who hijacked a Pakistani jet 13 days ago and of prolonging the ordeal. The Reagan administration says the Soviet role came into play on the captive plane's first stop in Kabul, Afghanistan. No official motives were suggested, but Washington sources say it is believed that Moscow wanted to embarrass the Pakistani government and force it to deal with the Marxist regime in Kabul. Robert Pierpoint reports from the State Department.
The State Department declared that despite urging from the United States government, the Soviet Union did nothing to resolve the problem while the hijacked plane was at the Soviet-controlled Kabul airport in Afghanistan. A spokesman was asked if he was accusing the Soviets of complicity in the hijacking.
I don't see how the Soviets can entirely escape responsibility for what took place.
In fact, Dias charged, the three hijackers calmly received visitors at planeside.
All three hijackers stood in view of Afghan and Soviet security personnel without any apparent concern for their own safety. Several ex-hostages have also said that the hijackers received additional weapons while in Kabul. They arrived with pistols. They left with machine guns.
Craig Clymore, one of the Americans aboard the Pakistani airliner, faces a drug smuggling charge when he returns to the United States. Today in Damascus, Clymore was asked if the Afghans gave the hijackers weapons.
It's believed, it's very possible that they could have got the semi-machine gun there. It was very compact in a briefcase. It's very feasible it was done. We never saw the machine gun until Kabul.
A spokesman for the Soviet embassy late today branded the Reagan administration's charges completely groundless and a crude and undignified attempt to somehow make the Soviet Union responsible for the incident, solely with the aim of making some propaganda mileage out of this human tragedy. While officials here carefully avoided claiming the Soviet Union had actually instigated the hijacking, the implications of the department's charges reflect Secretary of State Haig's view that the Soviet Union sponsors most acts of international terrorism. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News at the State Department.
Clymore of Laguna Hills, California, was under house arrest at a Damascus hotel today as American officials questioned him on that drug smuggling charge. The United States is trying to force his return to New York to face indictment. Another passenger on that same hijacked plane has been identified as Lawrence Gordon Loam, a Canadian who was traveling with a phony U.S. passport. Officials say he is wanted for escaping 5 years ago from a Canadian prison where he was serving a 7-year sentence for drug smuggling. Now, also aboard that Pakistani jet was one Jan Eriksson, who has been identified as a Swede, recently released from an Italian jail, where he served 2 years for drug smuggling. As for the three Pakistani hijackers, they are being held under tight security at the Damascus airport. Syria has not said what it plans to do with them.
And all the time I've been hauling new cars, I've never seen anything like it. Quaker State's new lifetime engine lubrication protection program. Use Quaker State and you can get protection that guarantees your new car engine against oil-related failure. The engine, as long as you own it, in writing. It's guaranteed by Quaker State. The quality motor oil. Refined from Pennsylvania-grade crude oil.
New car or old, you'll be staying on the road with Quaker State.
You see those nasty little characters? Those are termites, one of the most destructive creatures on Earth. Each year, they tunnel up from below ground and damage more homes than fires, tornadoes, or hurricanes. A Terminix scientist developed a sure way to stop them. What we do is put a chemical barrier between your home and the ground that kills termites on contact. If you're worried about termites, give us a call. We'll keep them out of your house. We guarantee it.
President Reagan spent part of the day fielding questions from a group of congresswomen. And as Leslie Stahl reports, some of them made it clear they are not to be counted among the boosters of his budget-cutting plans.
President Reagan all but apologized for his poor record of appointing women to his administration. So far, there's one woman cabinet-level secretary, no undersecretaries or deputy secretaries, and only 3 fourth-level assistant secretaries, in addition to the head of the Peace Corps and the Environmental Protection Agency. But the congresswomen did not rise to complain about that. Some of them, though, did question Mr. Reagan on the effect of his budget cuts on women and children and poor people.
I think that some of the purveyors of these programs, the dispensers of the programs, are more worried about losing their position than they are about the people they represent, and they're trying to create an image that we are picking on the poor because they don't want to lose their clientele and possibly their position.
The president said that his mail so far is running 100 to 1 in support of his economic program. But there's one thing, he said, that puzzles him.
How do we explain that on the Sunday Times, New York Times, there were 45.5 pages of help wanted ads, and in the Washington Post Sunday, there were 33.5 pages of help wanted ads. And these were jobs calling for people that have ranged every range that you could make. How does a person in any one of those skills justify calling themselves unemployed when there's a fellow spending money advertising and saying, I've got a job, come fill my job? Maybe we've missed the boat someplace along the line.
Later, a group of contractors gave the president their Man of the Year award, to which he said, now I have an Oscar. He went on to talk about his economic program.
We can bring inflation down, and we can get America building again. You know, if that sounds like we're asking for miracles, well, on this eve of St. Patrick's Day, someone with the name of Reagan, I think, is entitled to think in terms of miracles.
Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
The Reagan White House today took another step away from the laid-back blue jean look of the Carter White House. Jed Duval reports it's now marine dress blue and marching to the beat of a different harpist.
The ceremonial Marine Guard was put back on station outside the West Wing of the White House today. The dress uniform manning of this post, last seen in the Nixon administration, was restored to, in the words of a spokesman, show courtesy and attention to presidential visitors, and he added, provide a little dignity. Something new inside, too, at a picture-taking session with Mrs. Reagan and Mrs. Sadat, wife of the Egyptian president. These are occasionally noisy, clacking moments, but today a Marine Corps harpist, Staff Sergeant Phyllis Mauney, played soothing melodies as the photographers fired away and the two women posed. Clearly, they mean to change the tone around here. Jed Duval, CBS News, the White House.
Budget cut talk today filled a host of House and Senate hearing rooms. Phil Jones reports the administration's proposed cutbacks fared better before some committees than others.
The progress today on the Reagan program was in direct connection with the hard, cold, majority control numbers. In the Senate Budget Committee, where first consideration of the Reagan budget cuts began, Republicans are in control. Chairman Domenici wants it completed by this week, and minority Democrats seemed resigned to little more than making warnings.
I think practically everybody around this table supports the president in his objective, but some of us question the route by which he hopes to reach that objective.
But in the House, where Democrats still reign, there were still more challenges, more mini-spats with the Reagan Budget Director Stockman, this time over reports that he spent about a minute making a far-reaching decision on the future budget and scope of the Federal Trade Commission.
Did this decision of great moment, did it have the due deliberation and consideration that such a major decision is entitled to?
Within the constraints of the time that we had available, I would say yes, we made
That's not a
much
satisfactory answer.
The food stamp program, the cost more than doubled in the past 3 years. Senate Agriculture Committee Chairman Helms carried the administration's case today for about a $2 billion cut in the food stamp program next year. Helms claimed the truly needy need not worry.
Now, these truly needy, the elderly, the blind, the disabled, working families with incomes below the poverty line, have nothing to fear from either this administration, this chairman, or this committee.
The governor of Puerto Rico appeared on behalf of his truly needy, and there was a warning of repercussions if Puerto Rico is cut by 25% in food stamp funds.
Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of economically disadvantaged Puerto Rican families would do exactly what an earlier generation did after World War II. They would migrate to the mainland to seek here the opportunity which a misguided national policy had denied them at home.
But even with that warning, Puerto Rico remains Exhibit A for all those who are demanding major cuts in the food stamp program, since 57% of Puerto Rico's population is on food stamps, and that amounts to 10% of all U.S. food stamp funds. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
School officials from 28 of the nation's biggest cities said today the Budget Act cuts two ways as applied to their public schools. They said bills trimming $500 million in classroom aid, but offering tax subsidies to private schools could make the public schools of this country two-time losers. A presidential aide responded, the public schools might be in worse shape unless inflation is brought under control. The stock market was way up today as the Dow Jones Industrial Average broke the 1,000 barrier.
A lot of us in the Friendly Skies grew up in Hawaii. We make our homes here. And with United's condominium vacations, you can too. Come live on the 9th green at Wailea or make your backyard on the ocean. Go native in a jungle hideaway. Get a place for the two of you or a house full of you at a price you can afford. Even if it's only for a week, make your home in our little corner of the world.
Fly with Friendly Skies.
Ask your travel agent for United's Privacy in Paradise brochure.
I'll never vacuum my bedroom again. I'll never vacuum my dining room again. I'll never vacuum anything again. From now on, I'm electric brooming with the Regina electric broom. Electric brooming is easier, lighter, and faster. And my floors look beautiful. No more vacuuming. From now on, I'm electric brooming. It saves me time for the things I really enjoy.
Don't vacuum. Electric broom. There's a choice of Regina electric brooms, all under $50.
A congressman who has an important voice in any U.S. aid to El Salvador went there today for a first-hand look. Representative Clarence Long of Maryland, chairman of a House Appropriations Subcommittee, met with El Salvador President Jose Napoleon Duarte and said afterwards it was a very worthwhile meeting. Long also received a 2-hour briefing from U.S. embassy officials on the military and political situation. Long's trip to Central America includes stops in Guatemala, Costa Rica, and Mexico, all paid for by the U.S. government. But his stop in El Salvador was not sanctioned by the State Department. Exactly why is not known. In the past 15 months, 15,000 lives have been lost in El Salvador's civil war between the military-civilian government and leftist guerrillas. We have 2 reports tonight on the fighting there, beginning with Bob Faw in the town of Palo Grande.
The government is trying hard, lobbing shell after shell into a hillside where rebels are camped, then sending in patrols to comb the area and secure it. These soldiers found no rebels, but they did stop to help an old man. Helping civilians, said one soldier, is progress. This is the cost of that progress in El Salvador. A small village, prosperous recently, now a ghost town. Precious belongings abandoned as residents fled the shelling in terror. Said one of the last to leave, life is impossible here now. This, too, is the price of El Salvador's war. Camps for those who fled and who now live in the dust and filth and very little else. This war is very much a hit or miss proposition. Local commanders admit that one guerrilla can hold off up to 10 soldiers in the dense, hilly terrain. Can you see them?
No, it's difficult.
They can see you.
Of course.
So security is temporary. Just 2 hours after the government helped him, the old man on the hilltop and his neighbors felt they had to flee an area the government considered secure. The residents obviously didn't. And when the government does secure an area and moves on, this is what often happens. Looters pick it clean. Soldiers don't even try to stop them. After all, this had been a town of subversives. Whatever is seized, the enemy won't get. And every day, innocent people keep dying. The 2 young men being buried here, killed when they tried to retrieve some cattle and were caught between government and rebel crossfire.
So there's a pattern here, a kind of rhythm. Hit and run attacks by the guerrillas, then search and destroy missions by the government. With neither side gaining that much, with the country torn apart, and with those who know the situation best agreeing, the pattern will continue for months to come. Bob Fall, CBS News, Palo Grande, El Salvador.
There is no welcome sign to San Francisco La Gotera. Instead, what greets you is a bridge bombed 2 days ago. The guerrillas have left their calling card. This town was a major target just 2 months ago when they launched what they predicted would be their final offensive to win the war. Today, except for slogans and buildings scarred by those 3 days of fighting in January, there are few signs that the guerrillas were ever here. It is like this in many towns which the rebels had intended to win over in their recent offensive. But now some guerrilla leaders tell CBS News that what happened back then was never intended to be their final push. CBS News was led to a secret location in the capital city of San Salvador to meet with 2 top rebel commanders. They say they are preparing for another offensive, and that now 75% of their weapons are coming from sympathizers in the army. There is no way of verifying this figure. The 2 men agreed to go on camera, but only one would give his real name, Alberto Ramos, a leader of one guerrilla group. The other one went by the name of Comandante Marcos. He described himself as one of 10 top officers in the organization that coordinates the activities among El Salvador's 5 guerrilla factions. The Comandante said that the guerrillas are reorganizing and rearming, that while their supply of weapons was dependent on the ups and downs of the black market, reports of arms pouring in from Nicaragua are greatly exaggerated. In addition to army sympathizers, guerrilla leader Ramos added that peasants are also helping, building bombs, setting barricades, and digging tunnels. He called American military assistance a shameful act, and the sending of advisors a smokescreen to mask the presence of American military men in combat against guerrillas. U.S. aid or not, the rebels said it is unlikely that their members will negotiate with the government, much less participate in the elections called for next year, unless they can be guaranteed that the military will keep hands off, a condition they don't expect to be met. What the rebel leaders say they do expect is another offensive from the left, but sensitive perhaps to their inability to seize towns like San Francisco during January's much publicized offensive, this time they said there would be no hint as to when that next attack might come. Charles Gomez, CBS News, San Francisco Gotera, El Salvador.
CBS News tonight learned that Senator Dennis DeConcini of Arizona now is under 24-hour-a-day protection by several law enforcement agencies following a threat against his life. Little more is known, except that the threat came shortly after the broadcast of a Mike Wallace segment on 60 Minutes in which Senator DeConcini alleged that the former Interior Minister of Bolivia is involved in cocaine dealing.
Which is better, Almaden Mountain Chablis or Taylor California Cellars? A leading journal, The Connoisseur's Guide to California Wine, compared them. Editor Charles Olkin reports.
We compared Almaden Mountain and Taylor California Cellars Chablis. Every single one of us preferred the Taylor California Cellars. Now this was a classic wine tasting, not scientific research. But we found the Taylor California Cellars better balanced, better made. A much better Chablis than Almaden Mountain.
Taylor California Cellars, a better Chablis. Judge for yourself.
Sir, have you ever had a Stouffer's French bread pizza?
Gee, I guess so.
Maybe you've forgotten how good they taste. Italian cheese's perfectly blended sauce.
Oh, it sure looks good.
Take your pick, deluxe, sausage and mushroom, pepperoni.
Hey, it's really good. Fresh tasting. Just one thing.
Yes?
Isn't it a little funny looking for a pizza?
Well, nobody's perfect. Stouffer's, the funny-looking pizza with a great fresh taste.
It's the city's third transit strike in 6 years, and throughout Philadelphia today, you couldn't get there from here without a lot of trouble. Carpools jammed rain-swept highways as more than 400,000 commuters found themselves without bus, trolley, and subway service in the nation's fourth largest city. High school attendance was down, but officials reported absenteeism among city workers was lower than usual. Negotiations broke off yesterday, and no talks are scheduled. The United Mine Workers today pushed back by 24 hours to midnight tomorrow their own deadline for a contract with soft coal operators that won't expire until March 27th. The union requires an early deadline to give the rank and file time to vote on any agreement. A strike probably would not have any immediate effect outside the industry because coal stockpiles are high and strip miners in the West would continue to produce. But the UMW's tradition of no contract, no work goes back a long way. And as Ed Rabel reports, the issues are volatile.
It is Sunday in the coal fields astride America's Bible Belt. That the Bible says God rested on the seventh day and sanctified it is taken seriously here.
If we have to work a 7-day work week, the ones that's trying to live right, I'm not putting myself ahead of nobody else, but the ones that likes to go to church and worship the Lord, how you going to do that? I've never worked a Sunday in 22 years. I've been in the union, and I don't intend to start now.
We got to work Saturdays, and now they're saying to work Sundays. Well, they're just putting us back in slavery, but we're not going.
Almost everywhere, members of the United Mine Workers Union are protesting the coal industry proposal to make them work when necessary on Sunday, traditionally a day of rest. They are angry, too, over the industry's demand to scrap the current multi-employer pension plan and replace it with company-by-company pension coverage. The fear is that miners will be left without pensions by smaller companies which run into financial problems.
Those are gut issues over which members of the United Mine Workers Union say they will strike. Neither the miners nor the coal companies seem to want a walkout, especially if it is a long one. These are bad times economically for both sides. But if history is any guide, the UMW will not hesitate to strike over contract demands. It has done so 5 times in the last 15 years.
Outsiders say miners make pretty decent money, which that's fairly true, but they only get paid, for what they deserve, and really they deserve more. Coal mine itself is a dark place to work. It's oftentimes a muddy place to work. It's a wet place to work. It's highly uncomfortable for 8 hours a day, and it's a highly dangerous place to work. Bad enough to work 5 days a week in a coal mine and try to preserve your health and safety.
Do you think they want a strike?
No, I don't. I mean, I prefer to work, but if that's what it takes to get it, well, I guess we'll just have to strike.
There's a pride here in this union, you know what I mean? People fought and died for this union. We're going to do everything to preserve the union, you know. We got to satisfy the needs of our people.
But the long 4-month strike 3 years ago failed many miners. 20,000 have been laid off since then. When the mines at Cayford, West Virginia shut down more than a year ago, miners everywhere were reminded of their helplessness. Before the mines closed, Cayford was a thriving community. Today, it is a ghost town.
10 years ago, they was housing up all these hollers, this holler, and up there they was at one time about better than 2,000 families in Cayford. We just had everything here. And on Saturday nights, everybody'd get together, go to church, just have a good time. If they ever told me that this place would be down, I never would believe it. I didn't believe when they said it was going to shut down, it would be down over 4 or 5 months. But it's been 15 months now, and it's still. Don't know when they'll ever go back.
What this country needs today is a really good rental truck at a really good price. So Ryder presents the $19.95 a day truck. For local rentals, this 18-foot Ryder truck is now only $19.95 a day plus mileage. And Ryder has great rates on other size trucks too, from small vans up to giant tractors. What this country needs today is a really good rental truck at a really good price. Ryder.
Some house, but you need a new heating system.
Gas is nice.
We heard wood stoves were efficient. Wood's not cheap.
There's oil. Cammy is a fireplace.
How about steam? You gotta have insulation.
I know electric.
Hold it, hold it.
Solar heat.
Hold it. The first step is the yellow pages.
The Bell System Yellow Pages. The first step in helping you solve a heating problem. Before you waste time and money, take the first step. Let your fingers do the walking through the Bell System Yellow Pages. Some storm.
The house is cozy.
In the thousands of years since man and dog first became acquainted in some prehistoric cave, man has sent the dog on some peculiar errands. This accounts for the puzzled way in which dogs often look at their alleged masters. David Dick has tonight's example.
At the Security Police Academy at Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, once upon a time you had to be big, a real bruiser. Duke, Major, Bushka, Rebel. That was once upon a time. Now you don't have to be big. You can be little, even be Precious. Precious will bite, but that's not what she's here for. Precious is here for the same reason as Cotton and Taco. They're the new sniffer dogs, trained to sniff out drugs. Most of this line of work, including detection of explosives, is still done by the big German Shepherds, no question about that. And they're still the best thing around to get a hold of a situation. But when it comes to tiny places, little cracks and crevices where somebody might have stashed some marijuana or heroin, you'd have to go a long way to find somebody better cut out for this sort of thing than a little old beagle. Even somebody as short-legged and ear-chewed and bob-tailed as Macho.
They don't smell with their tail. It's this little thing right up here that we're using.
In a sense, we have a sawed-off German Shepherd.
We have a detector dog.
But not just any little dog will do. Poor Peg, she's a 4-time failure with a problem.
Peg has a problem in working for a tangible reward continually.
But one day we may come to realize, after all, that the smartest dog here was Peg, who figured sniffing for drugs was really rather boring. Just jumping for goodies was a lot more fun, and the quickest way to get to be a civilian again. David Dick, CBS News, San Antonio.
That's our report for this Monday. Until tomorrow, Dan Rather, CBS News. Good night.
Energy isn't found just in the ground. It can also be found in the lab. So Conoco is pouring money into research, with results. We found a better way to turn coal into liquid fuels and gases that can take the place of petroleum. We've developed a chemical that helps more oil flow through the Alaska pipeline. And Conoco has created a spray that holds down coal dust on hopper cars. It helps protect the environment and can save 80 tons of coal per train load. As America seeks to be less dependent on foreign oil, we look for energy in the lab. At Conoco, money produces oil, natural gas, coal, uranium, and petrochemicals. Conoco. This year, we're spending nearly $3 billion on energy.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. This is CBS.
A train